So talking about, again, innovation in the next 10 years, we've been hearing about ecosystems, platforms, apps in the past 5 years. And one of the things I actually believe is that app developers, and I know a few of you guys are app developers, will become resellers of APIs. Your job, you've always been resellers, but your job is going to change. And to talk a little bit about this, we invited, it's a company that was recently acquired by Facebook called Parse. I'm sure that if you guys are developers, you know about it. It was acquired, I think, last May. And we have here the CEO and founder of that company. And then he will be interviewed by a TechCrunch writer about talking about this future of ecosystems and apps in the view of Facebook. Because, of course, Facebook is probably one of the biggest, if not the single biggest, platform and ecosystem today. So please welcome Ilya, Sukhar, the co-founder and CEO of Parse, and Frédéric Lardinois, which I said right in French. Frédéric and Ilya, please. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
The stage is yours.
Thank you. So we're actually going to talk about something completely different. We're going to talk about towels.
I will say I'm satisfied with the quality of the towels in my hotel room. I only sold my company a little bit ago, so my towel standards are
higher.
Yeah, not yet.
That's fair enough. Quick show of hands. How many people in the audience are developers?
Good.
All right, quite a few. How many of you use Parse?
All right, good amount.
There's a few. There's your audience. So what we're really going to talk about today is kind of the journey of Parse, how you founded it, how you went through Y Combinator, and how you sold it to Facebook kind of fast. But just to start out, Y Combinator, it's kind of the high-end accelerators. And you went in there as a solo founder. Right. Which is really, really unusual. They don't take a lot of them. So how did that go?
Yeah, I had a fairly unusual Y Combinator experience. Not only was I solo founder, but Paul Graham actually hated my idea. So the story goes, I was working at Salesforce briefly after the company that I was working for got acquired. I wasn't loving it. It's a great company, but it wasn't for me. And so I decided, OK, I'm going to start a startup. And I quit my job, started working on mobile apps. Came up with this idea to build effectively a version of Apple's Find Your Friends. Idea was you could pick a small group of folks, set up a location tracking system, and if you're going somewhere and caravanning in multiple cars, someone gets pulled over, you can see that. If you're meeting up at a restaurant, someone's not really actually leaving their apartment, you can call them out on it. Fun idea. I applied to Y Combinator. Paul Graham hated it, but he let me in anyways. And so I had a sort of a low starting point.
So he liked you a lot, but he hated the idea?
I don't know why.
You don't know. He's a smart man. It seems like he did well by letting you in.
Sure.
But, so you came up with the idea of Parse at some point. But right. Before that, you had to find some co-founders, right? Because you can't just do it by yourself.
Right. And so I came up with this idea just from my own experiences. I was building this app and a couple of other not-so-great ideas before that. And it just seemed very hard to build mobile apps. I was a back-end guy. I knew how to do servers and databases and scaling. I didn't know how to build apps. And I expected to be spending all my time on the actual apps, on like the UI and all that. And it seemed crazy what I was actually spending my time on. It was like, how do I log in users on multiple devices? How do I deal with like offline modes? How does my app work in the subway? And so that's where the idea came from. I was solving my own need. But yeah, after Paul Graham let me in and told me to find a new idea and find someone to actually believe in me and work with me, I like really got on that. And Paul Graham's a good matchmaker. My co-founder Kevin, I met through Paul Graham. He was also looking for a new thing to do. He was working on a startup before, decided to move on to something new, and we got together. And there's an interesting story there. I was still working on this app and had this Parse idea in the back of my head. And for the first time when I met Kevin, I was like, oh, we could really work together. I'd gone through a bunch of people, and within the first hour, you can kind of tell that I don't want to work with this guy. With Kevin, I was like, oh, I could really work with this guy. But we got stuck on the idea. He hated my idea, I hated his idea, and we were just like, I wish we could get somewhere. And finally, the Parse thing clicked for both of us, and we decided to go after that.
So maybe we can take a little step back, and maybe you can explain to the people who are not developers and who haven't used Parse yet, what is Parse?
Right. So Parse is cloud services for mobile developers. So the idea is that if you're building an app, you're doing it on iOS, on Android, on Windows Phone, whatever platform you're doing it on, you want to focus on the actual app, the engaging user experience, the utility of it, the UI, the feel, the virality, whatever it is that really makes the app the app. You know, what is your app doing that's different from everyone else in the App Store? What Parse is all about is abstracting away all of the work you have to do that everyone in the App Store has to do. So how do you set up servers for your app? How do you log in your users? How do you keep track of them? How do you integrate all of the social networks? How do you do push notifications? How do you do content management? All of these things are pretty painful, and everyone in the mobile world is rebuilding them over and over again. And it's particularly painful because you have to do it for iOS, you have to do it for Android, you have to do it for all these platforms. And so Parse is a set of cloud services that just drop into your app and make it really dead simple to get going.
And you launched all of, well, not all of that, you launched a pretty basic beta in 2011.
Right. So, you know, Kevin and I didn't really know each other. We were going into Y Combinator, not necessarily very confident about this. So we wanted to get out really quickly. So we put our first beta out within maybe 3 or 4 weeks. And it was really dead simple, just data storage on iOS. But we got a good reaction. Hacker News really loved it. Stack Overflow loved it. All the places where developers hang out. And so we got a little bit more confident that this was something to keep pursuing.
And then very soon you got your first round of seed funding as well. Didn't take you very long.
Yeah, we did pretty well raising money through Y Combinator. Y Combinator obviously sets up things to make it as easy as possible. And I think our ability to move very quickly, we were one of the first people in our batch to put something out, really struck a nerve with investors. So folks came to us, and by the time we got to demo day, which is when everyone's supposed to raise their money and really get out to the world, we had already closed our seed round. And we were in a process of like, all right, we need to get better at saying no to people, because we want to take money from these people later. We want to keep good relations with them, but we really can't take your money right now. And so that was an interesting experience.
Did you know you had a hit on your hand at that point?
No, I don't think you ever really know. I think that when you're a month into it and someone's writing you a check for $300,000 without signing any documents, they come to you, you're like, really? Like, okay, well, I'll take your money, but you should think about this a little bit more. But yeah, over time you get a little bit more confident. I don't think you ever know that you're really succeeding, because for every small success, there's like 15 things in your head that are looming, that are about to fall apart, that you're really stressed about. There's always a next hill to climb.
And you raised, just a couple of months after, you raised, what, 5.5 million?
Yeah.
That must have been interesting to go right from that first round to the second round?
Yeah, so when we were in the process of getting better at saying no, we were like, are we doing this wrong? Maybe we should somehow convert all of these folks that are interested into actual dollars that we could take from them. So we didn't want to have like some crazy party round seed. So we did a traditional Series A in a few months.
And you take that round, and almost right away there's people who want to acquire you, right? Rumor, I mean, you get acquired by Facebook in the long run, but rumor is just within a year they already tried to acquire you after 1 year, and you said no to them, and maybe some other people as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think it was like 6 months. Yeah, I think one of the things that Facebook in particular, and a lot of companies in the Valley, I think, were figuring out is like mobile is hard, and native mobile is really hard. And so it's well sort of documented that Facebook went through a big transition from HTML5 to native, and they approached us because I think we had gotten a reputation for understanding how that world works and really kind of paving the way for other developers. I think we were very good at like saying, this is the right way to do it, here's why, here's all the instructions, here's a great video. Like we were good at sort of leading the way on development practices. And I think they needed that internally, so they approached us on a sort of typical talent deal. We decided not to go for it at the time.
Was that a hard decision at that point to say no? Because
no.
Facebook doesn't come along all the time.
Yeah, so we were definitely excited. It was fun to meet all those folks, to meet Mark and such. I think I think it wasn't that hard to say no because we had just like raised this big round. We had like moved out of our apartments finally and like gotten a real office. So we were pretty excited about our thing. And we knew there was a little bit more there. So we definitely kept the door open. And that's kind of how the real deal came together is we kept the door open and actually turned it around on them. So after we said no, we spent like ages pestering them to give us a distribution deal, to like, put our content on their developer site, to do things with us. And I think they, at some point, were like, wow, we should take these guys a little more seriously. Like, this is really interesting. And so the more, significant deal came together as part of that relationship.
And how did that happen? Mark called you up and said, we've got a weekend, I've got $1 billion, I want to acquire you now?
No, it's not the Instagram story, unfortunately. No, we spent a lot of time with them. So we had this sort of back and forth about how we can do things together. And it's funny, actually, our like partnership, where we did some minor thing together, finally launched like after we had already like secretly signed the docs to really like join Facebook. And so, it was just a bunch of discussions.
You are at Facebook now.
Yes, I am.
And
last time I checked.
Your LinkedIn says so.
That's right.
I think it's true. The whole thing worked out. You've never quite said how much money you got from the acquisition, but TechCrunch says it's 85 million, I think. You say it's somewhere in that ballpark. So, well, no comment.
TechCrunch has asked me many times. So I think putting me on stage is not going to.
I thought with 1,000 people here, you could. Anyway.
No,
but it's interesting. Facebook doesn't do a lot of acquisitions and then keeps the brand going.
Right.
Parse is still going the way it's going, kind of like Instagram too. Instagram is there, they're not messing with it too much. What's it like for you right now, being inside of Facebook, still doing the same thing?
It's really interesting, and that's what I wanted, and that was key to like making this happen. Is we really believe in Parse, and it was going well, and I think there's many now hundreds of thousands of developers that rely on us and that have built entire businesses on Parse, and so that was really key to doing anything. We had a pretty good independent path. We were in the middle of fundraising when the thing happened, and so. Yeah, these days it's great. We have a lot more resources. I can come here and not feel like the world is burning down without me. It's a lot of fun. We had this great conference a couple of months ago where we brought 600 developers from around the world to San Francisco, and Mark spoke, and we had a great real developers conference. So everything is basically accelerated. It feels like really the saying pour gas on the fire.
Well, it's funny, right? Facebook hasn't done a developer conference for a while, but you guys are doing your own developer conference, which is interesting. Now, when I talked to you earlier this week, I said, when I'm going to ask you that question, I'm sure you're going to say Facebook is giving us lots of resources, and you said there's going to be about 75% PR BS.
What's the 25%?
Are you still executing on the same roadmap you had before? Has anything changed there? Yeah,
I mean, if you look at the mission of Facebook platform and how they're talking about it, it's build, grow, monetize. So we want, developers to be successful with Facebook, and a big part of that is, you got to build the app first. And so Parse is all about that. We've always been about that. I think that some things have changed. We're not really as focused on how can we enable internal line of business. How does the cupcake, bakery track their purchases on the iPad. I think that's a valid thing to do, but we're more excited about social gaming, utilities, things in consumer app stores these days.
Does Facebook ask you to do certain things? Has that changed?
I have to go to a few more meetings. I have to,
That's what happens when you join a big company.
I have to use Microsoft Outlook.
That's hard.
I think actually we do more. So I'm now more involved in just general platform stuff and figuring out how to blend the two worlds of Parse and Facebook.
Does Facebook use Parse internally?
It does not. Actually, there's a lot of prototyping going on with Parse because it's really easy to get started. That said, I mean, the Facebook stack top to bottom, from mobile to web to like data, is pretty mature. And so I think there might be some explorations there, but they have their own things going, and that's not like the priority right now.
They're still doing PHP, right? So.
That's right. I guess I have to know PHP.
You do have to know PHP now.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
When you started out, you were running on, I think you said Amazon, right?
We were still running on Amazon.
You're still on Amazon.
Yeah.
They didn't ask you to switch to their stack? Nothing?
No. I mean, they're really pretty hands-off. I think at some point we'll move some services over because it's really great to like have more control over the data center side of things, but that'll be in a long time. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, LeWeb 10 years, we're supposed to look forward 10 years as well, right? When you look at developer services today, where do you see them going 10 years from now? What's happening for developers that's really interesting for you, and you think is going to arrive at some point in 10 years?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. 10 years is a long time. It's longer than my entire career. But what I spend a lot of time thinking about is how are apps going to be discovered? What is the distribution mechanism going to be? How are developers going to get themselves out there into the world? I think the App Store has really changed the world. But I think there's a lot of interesting stuff happening. So if you look at products like Siri and Google Now and Google Glass, they kind of make you think, are people going to discover apps in a different way? Like imagine folks don't go to app stores. They ask Siri a question, and Siri responds with a ranked list of all the best apps that perhaps your friends use. There's some of that right now. Obviously there's like Yelp and other integrations, but it's like very one-off kind of thing. Imagine you describe your app to some of these systems, whether it's like Siri, Google Now, and you then rely on some of these folks to like send you great users. If you even look at Google Glass, like what if you're looking around the world and as you like look at certain things, certain apps are like suggested to you? Like what I think would be really cool, I don't speak French. It would be great if I could like wear a Google Glass, walk around, anytime I look at something that's in French, it would like pop up translation apps, and I could be like, hey, translate that for me, because I don't know what's going on.
That already exists.
Does it?
Wordlens, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's quite nice.
Is it on
look
Google
at
Glass,
it, and
though?
it's on Google Glass, and you just look at the text.
All right,
it's
well,
right there.
Maybe I'm not thinking far ahead enough. But it should be auto-suggested to you.
It should be,
yeah.
Do you think voice as a mechanism to get to that data is interesting? Do you think it's happening?
I think voice is interesting. I think the dream is great. I think the current implementations aren't so hot. But I think those companies are getting great. I think actually I recently switched to Android, and I think Google Now is a pretty great product. And I think that's one of these things that these companies can offer to third-party developers, right? It's like the average third-party developer is not going to invest in like a research lab to do cutting-edge voice recognition. But if they integrate with these systems, what if they get all of the benefits of that for free? It would be really great.
Now that you are at Facebook, as we decided earlier on, what do you think Facebook's role is in that world at that point?
Yeah.
And for developers specifically, too.
Right. I think Facebook is really invested in making developers successful, and I think Facebook has world-class products that no one else has, right? The login system, 80% of the top apps use Facebook login. The newsfeed, fantastic distribution.
You also offer Twitter, right, as a login mechanism.
Oh, Parse?
Yes, Parse.
Yeah. So, I mean, Parse is owned by Facebook, but we make it really dead simple to use Twitter. The idea behind Parse is not to, like, funnel everything towards Facebook. It's to really just enable app creation. We should make it easy to build, Facebook services into your app as easy as possible. But, yeah, we do Twitter. We are, agnostic on that front.
And maybe it's worth noting that there's nothing there that Facebook tells you can't use Twitter. They don't tell you got to use something specifically as well. So it's it's a nice deal you got.
This is actually something we discussed in the negotiations. We were like, "Are you going to ask us to turn off Twitter?" Mm-hmm. No. This is.
So maybe to go back one step, when the acquisition was announced, how did the developers on your platform react to that? Were they nervous?
I think some people wanted to know what the future looked like, because I think if you look at Facebook's acquisition history, there aren't that many examples of leaving the company alone. Instagram is one of them. They paid $1 billion. They didn't pay $1 billion for us, unfortunately. And so people were asking, and I think some of our competitors tried to spin it up into oh my god, a controversy. But it was pretty simple. Just the proof is in the actions, right? Nothing's really changed. We've invested more. We've had developer conferences. We've built more stuff. I think people got pretty comfortable pretty quickly.
Well, we've got a few seconds. Looking ahead, where do you see yourself in 10 years?
In 10 years, I think I'll either be at Facebook or running another company.
All right.
Yeah.
We'll keep an eye on you.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much, Ilya.
Thank you.
Thank you, Frederick.